What's up guys, Steven and Mark of TST Industries. We're here today to bring you a tech tip episode on a very popular product, our harness converters. These are applicable to a lot of customers when they go for some signaling options from us. So we're going to discuss what they are and a couple of common errors that people run into to get you all sorted when you get these installed. So stay tuned, there's a lot to cover.
All right, so to start off, I'm Mark. I'm the customer support guru here at TST Industries, and I get asked pretty frequently, what are harness converters? Do I need them for my signaling options? Are they plug and play, things like that? So Steven and I are here today to break this down into the simplest terms, get you guys figuring out if you need harness converters, what are they, how do they work, and all that jazz. So let's go right in. What are we working with here on this table right now?
Sure. In the most basic form, harness converters are a very popular add-on item to some of our signaling options or even other aftermarket signaling options that are out there. So let me explain a little bit more about what we mean. To keep some of our standard LED signaling options for either the front or the rear as economical as possible, and because there's sometimes multi-application, we needed to incorporate bullet connectors on those signals. Now, for a lot of people, they don't want to have to try to hardwire these into their bike. They want a plug and play solution. And this is where harness converters come in. I can demonstrate really quickly. If we take something like this, we have our bullet connectors on our signal and then a harness converter. You would plug them, you would plug bullet to bullet, and now on the other side, I have the plug that can be suited for my particular bike, and it now becomes a plug and play installation.
Seems pretty simple. Now I noticed there's quite a few different styles and options here. Do I just kind of pick whichever one has my favorite color? How do I know?
So luckily this is pretty easy. As long as you know the manufacturer of your bike, Yamaha, Kawasaki, Honda, etc., you have a pretty good idea of which one you need. So we have two up here for Honda, and then we have one each for Yamaha, Suzuki, and Kawasaki.
Gotcha. And why does Honda have two? I'm sorry.
It's all good. So Honda has two because we have been able to nail down a very consistent signaling setup from Honda, depending on the front and rear, and then a couple of things about geographic locations. So diving in a little bit deeper on there, our first one, what we call CVH01, these are the shorter ones. These are really, really common for North American sport bikes for the front signal. Typically, those sport bikes have the running circuit, a signal on, and then a ground. Our flush mount signals, our standard ones, are not meant to have a running light. It's supposed to just operate during signaling. So they have two wires, on and ground. This is therefore what we call a 3-to-2 converter. This goes from the 3-pin Honda plug that you'll probably find on your bike to the two bullet connectors that you're going to find on the signal. Now the other one that we have over here is what we call a 2-to-2 converter. This is popularly used on the rear of bikes because the rear doesn't have a running light circuit, so it doesn't need that third wire. Or these are sometimes applicable to foreign bikes. Some of the European market doesn't have a running light in the front, so they'll actually have a 2-pin plug on the front as well, where these might become applicable. But just in general, this is the 2-pin connector that you can find on the back of a lot of North American Hondas. And then we obviously have the power and ground for the signal. So these are really popular in North America to go with something like our LED pod signals in the rear.
And can they also work with other brand signals or signaling options?
Sure. Like I said, it is very popular for economic sake and to make them as applicable to as many people as possible for a lot of companies to do this type of a setup where it'll be a bullet connector on the signal. So yes, if that is the case, if you already have a signal that incorporates this exact bullet connector, then there's probably not a reason why our harness converters wouldn't work. But I've got to say, a lot of people are coming to TST for our signals in the first place, so we find it's really popular for people to pick up their flush mount signals and harness converters at the same time from the same store.
Awesome, awesome. And I notice here, all of these converters seem to have two wires, except Yamaha has three. They're all different colors. Do you care to explain what's going on there?
Sure. Yamaha gets a little complicated because they have changed up their signaling harness throughout the years and depending on where you're geographically located. As I had mentioned before about our standard signals not having a running light feature, that is actually what the third wire on these harness converters are for. Now, don't get me wrong, this doesn't mean that you suddenly get the running light functionality on the Yamaha signal. What's actually happening here is that Yamaha has changed which pin, as far as running versus signal on, power versus ground. They've changed where those wires go into the plug on their bike. So, in order to make these applicable to a lot of Yamaha owners throughout the years or in different geographic locations, we actually have to provide all three wires, because you may have to change which wires you plug your signal into in order to make it correct for your bike.
Okay.
So ultimately, this is pretty easy to figure out, and Yamaha has gotten nicer on us, and they've made it pretty consistent for the most recent generations of Yamaha. But this can get a little complicated. So we're actually going to have another tech tip episode that's going to dive in really deeply on the Yamaha harness converters and their signals in order to explain that to a greater detail.
Gotcha. Now, are there any issues that can arise, not just from Yamaha, but any of the other converters, if I just plug them in? I mean, is it a direct yellow to yellow, black to black? Any problems that can happen?
For the most part, and as long as some owner before you with your sport bike, if you're picking up a used one, hasn't messed up your signaling harness too much, that is the way these are meant to be used. If you have something like these rear pod signals, you would go as simply as yellow to yellow, black to black. As I mentioned, Yamaha can get a little bit different. We actually have been able to figure out some of the default configurations for the most recent ones, which we can explain in that other tech tip episode. But otherwise, it should be that simple.
Okay, awesome. And I remember you mentioning that these only have a signal light function. What if I want a running light function? What happens there?
If you're really looking for a running light on your front signals, that is where our premier flush mount signaling option comes into play, and that is our Halo lineup. The Halo lineup is a really elegant, cool solution to provide this functionality. On those particular units, the running light circuit now has this cool perimeter colored lighting, and it's a really neat look on the bike. And then we've also combined that with an extremely bright signaling unit inside of that flush mount. So that is kind of the double winner. You get this really cool running light look that you can kind of match up to the color scheme of your bike, and you're getting one of the highest quality and brightest, most visible front flush mount signals that's available on the market today.
Awesome.
We currently have those for the 07 to 12 Honda CBR 600RR, also the 13 Plus generation of that bike, and then we're hoping to come out with our Yamaha Halo lineup, starting with the R3 as early as the beginning of 2017. So we're currently filming this in October of 2016. If you're watching this after early 2017, there's a good chance we have some Yamaha options available for you.
Awesome. Well, I think that just about wraps it up. We got a good idea of what converters are. Do I need them? Are they plug and play? Flush mounts are covered. I think we're all good to go. Hopefully you guys enjoyed and were helpful.
Sure. So as the most basic summary, if you're in the market for either front signals or maybe even some stuff in the rear, you should definitely be interested in these harness converters if you're looking for the plug and play wiring installation. I think at this point, if you guys have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them below this video if you're watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, you can head on over to tstindustries.com to learn more about these products or get them ordered online. This has been Steven and Mark. We'll catch you guys next time.